Welcome to the Virtual Strategic Solutions Virtual Reality Simulation System. Accessing Legacy Dataset. Files loaded. Simulation ready. The mine was originally owned by the Lucky Hole Mining Company. At some point, no later than March 2061, an old woman asked the understaffed security team for a tour of the Lucky Hole mine. She was turned away and angrily muttered to herself as she left. Shortly thereafter, the mine was ordered to cease operations by its parent corporation. Immediately following this development, the old woman returned with a group of people. Again, she requested a tour of the mine, and again she was turned away. After this, people were seen lurking around the premises at night, and locks were found smashed. Before long, the security team left an entry on their terminal explicitly surrendering the decommissioned mine to this group out of fear. The smuggler's stash note indicates that people named Claire and Gavin were living in the mine in late 2077. The note also contains a 6-digit code, which corresponds to the locked door within the mine. The smugglers stockpiled survival goods here in anticipation of the coming war. On October 21st, 2077, the cult of the Mothman gathered for a sermon, where the preacher announced a ceremony in Point Pleasant to summon the red-eyed Mothman, a herald of disaster. The following day, the preacher told the congregation that Brother Charles received a vision from the Mothman, later alleged by the enlightened to be the wise Mothman, warning him that fire and flood would destroy the town within a day. The Mothman compelled the group to seek high ground to save themselves. The cult resolved to gather on the rooftops of Point Pleasant and wait for the flood which had been foretold. A group including Brother Charles then abruptly traveled from Point Pleasant to the Lucky Hole mine across the state and took shelter there. As the Great War rained fire on Appalachia, the cult of the Mothman settled into the mine. A Mothman Museum employee named Jeff Lane remained in Point Pleasant after the war. At some point, he made his way to the mine in hopes of becoming a conduit for a higher power he called the Interloper. He became obsessed with the concept after first hearing of it from a storyteller he believed to be mad. The storyteller told him the creature was sleeping below the earth, and Jeff came to believe it had chosen him for a higher purpose. While the cult waited for the fallout to settle, some among them turned to darker worship and began to worship a being they called the Firstborn of the Wood, under the guidance of a figure known only as the First Priestess of the Wood. The Firstborn, better known as the Interloper, is said to have bled from its branches and created a spring to hydrate its followers. Some cultists, Charles among them, rejected these new wood-worshipping practices and left the safety of the mine to form an opposing sect, the Enlightened. The First Priestess of the Wood eventually died, and her casket was enshrined in the central chamber, elevated prominently between the chapel and the springs. A human skull was placed on this casket, neatly arranged with radstag antlers, evoking the form of an antlered human. Those loyal to the priestess continued to address her and deliver blessings unto her posthumously. By 2102, all humans in Appalachia had died or fled due to the scorched plague. The mine was infested with vermin. Mole miners could also be encountered scavenging here. In 2103, the followers of the Winged One returned to the region and reclaimed the mine. In 2104, the Enlightened would claim that it was Charles himself who originally led the group to the mine, but this has not been substantiated by contemporary evidence. The Lucky Hole mine's exterior consists of industrial outbuildings, assorted machinery and vehicles, abandoned huts with makeshift bedding, and a hangar covering the entrance to the mine. The mine opens into a staging area, which includes a bed and a cooking station up the stairs, a power armor station in the storage room below, and the locker rooms with various mining-related loot. Throughout the entirety of the mine, lead and crystal ore veins are found that can be mined to obtain lead ore and crystal ore respectively. The southern direction leads to a mining corridor that terminates in a passageway that leads eastwards into the dark chapel. The coffin of the First Priestess is elevated in the middle of this chamber, past the pulpit of the chapel section. Beyond this altar is an underground spring centered around a towering mite totem. Beneath a small waterfall, the eyes of a mostly buried cyclopean statue peer into the chamber. Additionally, 3 freshly dead settlers can be found in the spring. An ore-rich area is visible above the waterfall. To get there, approach the hallway on the left side of the chapel. Immediately within the passage, dense vines hide a narrow path on the right wall. Proceeding into this tunnel will take you to the chem lab, which allows access to the ore chamber. To the left, when entering the chem lab, is another hidden passage, which leads to the lair of the Firstborn of the Wood. 5 large statue faces and 5 bone tree effigies watch over this chamber, which hums with strange ambient noises. The floor of the chamber is littered with bones, decayed bodies, and empty glass jars,